Trigger warning, we're talking about rape. Hello, comic book fans. If you are an Invincible fan, you read Invincible number 110. If you didn't, you should know that Mark was raped by a Viltrumite woman, supposedly for the purposes of procreation. Although we all know that that's not why rapists do what they do. People were absolutely outraged. There are some people who feel like rape should never exist in a comic book ever. There were some people who felt like the scene was overly sexualized, that it was too violent. Some people were rubbed the wrong way by Anissa telling Mark at the end that he needed to man up, implying that, a real man can't be raped. There were people who were upset by the fact that Anissa also implied that men really want it when they're raped. The rape scene was absolutely offensive, it was incredibly violent, and it was meant to be. Could it have been a little more censored? Well, yeah, absolutely. However, to be fair, Invincible relies heavily on outrageous violence, and it almost seems insincere for them to pull punches and censor that violence because this issue is more controversial than previous issues, which, by the way, Invincible is no stranger to controversial issues. The real question here is the story using this rape plot to start a real, honest, upfront conversation about the emotional effects of rape on men? We all know that women have been raped in comics pretty liberally in the past. We all remember the, well, I had to prove that he was a really bad guy defense. Is it okay for a male character in a comic book to be raped so that we can have a conversation about it? And is that what Robert Kirkman is doing? Robert Kirkman did an interview with MTV Geek where he talked a little bit about his intentions for Mark emotionally in the next coming issues and how he's going to deal with this rape. One of the things he said was that he wanted to make the rape trope better, which offended a lot of people because phrasing, bro, phrasing. I mean, I get what you were trying to say, but phrasing. Later on in the interview, Kirkman talked more about the emotional struggle that Mark is going to go through, saying that he did a lot of research and a lot of reading about rape victims' experience, which made a lot of people mad because, I mean, let's face it, the notion that you could just read about this emotionally traumatizing experience and know what it's like can be kind of offensive. However, as a writer, it is his job to talk about the human experience, but he can't exactly go out and experience rape. That is not an option. So if you believe that he shouldn't be tackling this topic, do you then believe that we need to wait for someone to come along who has experienced rape and who is willing to share that with the world before we can have this conversation? Do you feel okay about asking someone to relive that trauma so that we can have an honest conversation about a real social issue? If there's any book out there that is willing to take off the gloves and have a real nitty-gritty, in-your-face conversation about the emotional effects of rape, I believe that Invincible is in a position to do it. Mark is a young, admirable, manly hero, and I think that he is in a position to break a lot of negative stereotypes and bad assumptions that happen to men who have been raped. The Walking Dead and Invincible both rely on heavily sensationalized plots. I mean, everything has to be the very most dramatic plot turn ever that there ever was. But taking that into consideration, I still think that Robert's intentions are in the right place. One of my fellow Valkyries, Leah, actually has a blog called Subcultured, and she made a very valid point. Regardless of how you feel about the actual plot device or what's going on in the comic, she had to give Robert Kirkman props because he made a point. Anissa could have sex with anyone that she wanted to. She could procreate and make babies with anyone, and she chose Mark because it was a power struggle, which illustrates the point that rapists don't rape because they can't go out and find someone to have sex with. They rape because it's about power. It's about having control of someone. Overall, I'm gonna let it lie until next month. I would really like to see this comic evolve into something where we're having a very revolutionary conversation, but I'm not gonna put any judgments on what's going on until I read the after effects. If we get the honest, upfront conversation that we need to have about rape culture from a character who is obviously a very strong male protagonist, then I'm gonna call it a win. This is a conversation that we need to have, and it needs to happen somewhere. This is as good a place as any. However, if it's not discussed in an upfront and respectful manner, I'm gonna have to drop the book. And I don't wanna, because I like it. Please don't fail me, Kirkman. Please don't fail me. You can read more of her blog in the link down in the doodly-doo below. And you should. It's a really well-written article. So what are your thoughts on Invincible 110? Did you hate it? Are you absolutely outraged? Are you curious to see what's going on? Tell me down below in the comments. Let's start a conversation about this now. Let's not wait for Robert Kirkman to tell us to. Let's talk down below in the comments. Also be sure to like this video, share, subscribe. Every once in a while we talk about controversial topics, and if that's what you like, if you like to stir the pot, come back and see us again. As always, a special thanks goes out to Austin Books and Comics for holding all of our Invincible comics for us.